Hey guys, it's Saria. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, so I know it's been a really long time and I'm so sorry for that. It's just been so hard to actually find time to edit videos. I have videos, but actually editing them and getting them uploaded, no time. No time! If you guys are new to my channel or this is the first video you're catching, hello, my name is Saria and I do DIYs and unboxings and hauls and lots of ear making. That's probably the biggest thing on my channel. Today's video is a collaboration video with my friend Shannon over at the Spoony Stitcher. Of course, I have Shannon linked down below for you guys so that you can check out her channel and her video today. And she had this really creative idea to pick a character that is like super underrated, like kind of a forgotten character, like not really one that people talk about or you see a ton of merch for, and to create something for that character. So I do feel like I picked this character and got all my supplies, and then suddenly I started noticing that there was merch out for this character recently. So I don't know if it's like a coincidence or if I just picked wrong. I don't know, but so with this video, we were basically like, let's not put too much pressure on ourselves. If we want to do, we have to do at least one DIY, but if we want to do more than one, maybe we could do like 2 or 3. I will tell you guys, I did not have time to do more than one. I just didn't. But I am very proud of the one that I did. So I decided to go with Madam Mim for my character. And if you guys don't know who Madam Mim is, she is kind of the villain, the antagonist in The Sword and the Stone, which I do feel like as a whole, that movie is super underrated, underseen. Like even people who really love Disney, a lot of them haven't even seen this movie. So I felt like I was picking somebody kind of unique, but then recently I was like seeing her on a bunch of merch and I was like, what the heck? I say that, but I am really glad Madam Mim is getting some love because I think she's such a funny villain and she's just like, I don't know, she's kind of like whimsical and kooky and I really enjoy that. Anyway, so if you guys haven't seen The Sword and Stone, Madam Mim is a witch and it's very Merlin, Sword and Stone, King Arthur, all of that. And Madam Mim is a witch, wizard, warlock. I don't know what the right term, but she's one of those. And she like turns herself into things. She can make herself bigger or smaller and she turns herself into animals and she has a really funny villain song in the movie. And anyway, all of that, I decided to make a set of ears dedicated to her. And I really wanted to do something special for the ears, but her outfit is so simple. It's literally like a pink skirt and a purple top and she has purple hair. So I decided to make this set of ears a little bit different. I was going to insert a sound box. So if this isn't my first if you guys are not new to my channel, then you've seen me do this before. I did make a people mover version of this, and I also did a Tower of Terror version of this, but I haven't done one dedicated to a character just yet. First time for everything. So I did get this little sound box off of Amazon, and then I recorded a little section of Madam Mim talking in the movie where she says her name and everything. I thought it was really cute. And then I decided to add little details to this set of ears to resemble her when she turns herself into a pig. Also, spoiler alert, these ears are for an ear swap that I'm participating in that's coming up very soon. So make sure you're subscribed and have rung that notification bell so that you don't miss out when that video posts. Okay, I feel like I've been nonstop talking, so let's jump into this tutorial. So for these ears, I'm going to be using 2 different fabrics. The first is just this plain hot pink kind of magenta tone. And I'm going to be tracing 4 of my ear cutting line template onto these and then going ahead and cutting it out. The reason that I'm double layering it is because the top layer is more of like an organza fabric and it's see-through. So it definitely needs something underneath to look right. So go ahead and cut 4 of those out and then I'm going to move on to the organza material. And for this one, I didn't trace it because I didn't want it to get on my cutting mat. So I'm literally just cutting around the template itself. I'm definitely over cutting it, but I'll trim it up if I need to or just glue it down. I'm going to be including a sound box inside of these ears, which I'll get to how to do it, but because of that, I'm not going to be doing my normal felt method. I will be using polyfill. So you're going to need a piece of cardboard first to create the base of your ear, and I'm going to be tracing the foam and batting template, which is the smallest template of the ones that I have linked down below for you guys. And I'm going to trace 4 of those and then cut those out using an X-Acto knife. This isn't actually the clip of the cardboard I used for the Madame Mim ears. I forgot to record that step, so I did pull this from another video, but it is exactly the same steps. Just go ahead and trace 4 and then cut those out. These are the sound boxes that I use whenever I create ears that have sound in them. I'm going to play a little clip for you guys, but I can't play too much because otherwise I'll get pinged for copyright.
Thank you, my boy, but that's nothing.
These work really well. There's a play, recording, and neutral setting. So when you click that little switch to the R, you can record any sound you want. And then when you switch it to play, every time you press the button, it will only play. When you are recording, you literally just hold down the button and you can like play a clip on your phone or you can talk into it. They're super simple and they work perfectly for this project. Now that you have all 4 of the cardboard ears cut out, I'm going to be showing you how to insert the sound box. So on 2 of the ears, you're going to need to create a hole. I take the sound box itself and I trace around it, and then I'm going to use my X-Acto knife to cut out this circle. I'm only going to do one side to start because I want to make sure that the sound box fits securely, and then I'm going to use the hole on the first ear to trace onto the second ear to make sure that the sizes are exact. So after getting the hole cut out, I'm just trying to see if the sound box fits, and if it's a little bit too big, I will kind of shave off a little bit more of the cardboard. But once I've got it nice and snug, then I go ahead and take that ear and trace another hole onto the other cardboard ear, and then same process, I go ahead and cut out that hole, and then I'll take the sound box and test it out and just make sure that everything fits nicely. If it doesn't, I literally just take off a little bit at a time until it does fit well. Okay, and then I did get a little bit out of frame for this, but I'll get back in frame. So taking the sound box, I put it inside one of the cardboard ears. So it's about halfway in on the first cardboard ear, and then I am hot gluing that hot pink magenta colored fabric on along the edges. So if you follow my ear tutorials a lot, we're skipping the felt this time because we're going to be using polyfill instead. So here you can see me just folding over the fabric and tapping it down into the hot glue. You don't want to pull your fabric super tight because you don't want it to be so tight that you can't get polyfill inside. And you also don't want it to be super tight because it might start to press the button like over and over again. And you don't want that. So that's about the tautness that it's at. You can kind of see the outline of the sound box, but it's not like super clear. And then I made a mistake here and I started closing it up before I actually put the polyfill in, so don't do that. I do like to cut the bottom of the fabric in half because I do think it's easier to glue that way. But before you glue it, you want to stuff it. So you don't need very much polyfill for this project. Honestly, the polyfill I've been using for like over a year is from the inside of a pillow that ripped. So that's where I got mine. But if you're literally doing one small project, honestly, you can get creative with this. But I'm just going ahead and stuffing it and just kind of like getting inside and making sure that it's got stuffing all around the sound box, but not on top of it. And then I folded over the edges of that fabric and glued it down correctly this time. So now we have 1/2 of an ear, and we're going to go ahead and make the top layer attached now. So taking that organza fabric, I'm going to do a line of hot glue, and then you probably will want something to push on the hot glue that's not your actual skin because it will go through that sheer material. So I have these little silicone finger covers from Dollar Tree, and they also have in the beauty section silicone spatulas for like applying face masks. Those work really well too. But I would definitely just suggest something to where you're not having to burn yourself when you do this step. And then I'm just going to work my way around. I did end up getting glue on the front of these ears. Luckily it came off, but I did have to sit there and like pick at it for a really long time. And we're going to go ahead and close up the bottom the same way as before, just folding over the fabric and tapping it down into the hot glue. And so now we have both layers of fabric onto 1/2 of an ear. And next we're going to move over to the other ear and go ahead and start working on that one. So for this one, it is almost the same process. You're going to take the cardboard and that hot pink fabric first, and then just do thin lines of hot glue on the edge, and then fold over your fabric and tap it down into the glue and just work in sections all the way around the ear. Make sure you don't close up the bottom yet though, because you're going to have to put polyfill inside. Now for this side, I did decide to go ahead and do the organza layer before attaching it because you want to make sure that it looks nice and clean. So go ahead and do the exact same steps with that sheer fabric, just doing thin lines of hot glue and then folding over your fabric and tapping it down. And then you can close up the bottom at this point because you do have a hole in the center where you can add the polyfill, or you can add it through the bottom and then close it up. Again, I'm really sorry I got out of frame, guys. But yes, go ahead and fill it up with polyfill, and you can still move it around in that little center hole if it's kind of not how you want it. And then you're going to go ahead and push that sound box in. Just make sure everything's lining up really nicely. To attach it, you're going to put some hot glue all around the sound box. Obviously, don't cover the sound box in hot glue. That's not going to help. But just make sure there's enough hot glue to where it's going to give a really nice stick, but it's also not going to be like oozing out the edges of your ears. I know the edges of the ear look really ugly right now, but don't worry, that's a really easy fix. We're just going to be taking this trim. I have this trim, I think it's from Walmart, but it's so cute. It's like this purple and pink, perfect for Madame Mim trim. That rhymed. Anyway, you're going to put a thin line of hot glue around the edge of your ear, and then you're going to tap down the trim into the hot glue. And you can pre-measure the trim and just go ahead and cut it, or you can work off of the spool. It's kind of like personal preference. But I'm just going to continue around the ear, doing a thin line of hot glue inside of that crack, and then tapping down my trim into the glue and allowing it to dry. And then obviously if you have any excess on the end, just use some scissors to trim that off. And then once you have your trim all attached, you are done with the first ear. It's nice and clean, and then you're going to move on to creating the second ear and just repeating those steps. Next in the video, we're going to move on to making the bow. For the bow, I'm going to be using two materials, this really sparkly sequin purple fabric. I did get this at Joann's before they closed. And then I'll also be using a piece of purple felt that's 4.5 inches by 2.5 inches. And that's going to be the insert for the bow. I highly suggest using felt inside because it's going to give it nice structure and make sure that the bow stands up and looks how you want it to. So I went ahead and just cut the sequin fabric to be like a little bit longer than if you fold it over to cover the felt, if that makes sense. I don't have an exact measurement, but the felt is 4.5 inches by 2.5 inches. And then I'm going to start by gluing the sides of the sequin fabric down on the felt. This is how I avoid having to pull out my sewing machine because I don't want to. So after gluing down the sides, then I went ahead and glued up that little lip of a bottom edge, if that makes sense. It's like I do all the short sides first. And then on the really long portion of the sequin fabric, I'm folding over the edge and just doing a super thin line of hot glue to create a false hemline. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and fold it over and just kind of check it. It's a little bit too long, so I did decide to fold over the edge and hot glue it down so that it's kind of not in my way. And then I'm going to fold it over that felt, and now we have the basic like rectangular shape for the bow. So I'm pinching my bow and kind of accordion folding it and just seeing if there's any other little spots that I want to add glue to. For the center wrap portion of the bow, I'm going to use that same trim that we used around the edges of the ears. I just cut a little strip of it, and then I'm going to apply a dot of hot glue and then wrap the trim around the center of the bow. And then I'll snip off any excess that's kind of in the way and glue down the edge. I do suggest holding the trim really tight while the glue dries, or getting out like a little clip or something, because sometimes if you just let the bow go, then the trim pops off because the glue didn't dry all the way. So next we're going to go ahead and start assembling the ears. So I do have an ear template for this, or a headband template. I don't know what to call this. Spacing template, that's what it's called. You're going to lay out your headband and your ears. If this is your first time making ears, definitely take your time with it. You can even use like a little marker just to kind of mark where the ears go on the headband. But I do find that this template really, really helps. Apply a good amount of hot glue to the bottom, but you also don't want to overload it with glue because one, it will ooze out and kind of make a mess, and two, it will take way too long to dry and you actually won't get as good of a stick. So you kind of want a medium amount of glue. And then firmly press the ear onto the headband, and you'll do this on both sides. You do want to make sure that you hold the ear for long enough for the glue to dry. I say give it at least 60 seconds. A lot of the time you can kind of feel on the headband when the heat has kind of left. And then we're going to attach the bow. This is the easiest part. Just glue it straight down into the center. And then if you're busy, kind of like how I felt in this moment, you can take a clip and clip the bow and allow it to fully dry. And then that got me to this point. So I think you could stop here. I think these ears are super cute and versatile, but I did want to make them a little bit more Madam Mim obvious, which I know the sound box is pretty obvious, but just in case. I took this purple yarn and I just wrapped it around this little box that I had from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be making little kind of like almost like pigtails. That's what they are. They're pigtails sticking out from the bow to look like Madam Mim's hair. So after wrapping it around the box a bunch of times, I just took a little bit of additional string and I tied it in a knot at the top and then cut it from my spool of yarn. And then I'm also going to cut down the middle and open up the yarn. If you've ever made a tassel of yarn, it's the same method. I'm so sorry I got out of frame again. I don't know why I was struggling so much filming this video out of frame. But now that I have like a long piece of yarn, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. And I was kind of messing with the idea of doing like almost like a little pop out part, but I didn't end up liking that. Now, I also decided to add a little pig nose. So I only filmed cutting out this one and I didn't end up liking the shape of this one. So I did pull up an actual picture of Madam Mim as a pig. This is kind of the vibe I'm going for. So I'm trying to make the yarn look like her pigtails here. And then looking at the shape of this nose, the first one that I cut out just wasn't the right shape. But I'm still going to show it. So I just took some thin craft foam that I happen to have on hand and just eyeballing it, I cut it out. And then I also cut out like the little pig nostrils. I ended up doing the exact same thing. I just changed the shape of what I did. And then obviously if you don't want to freehand this, you can definitely take a pencil and just sketch it out before you cut it. Now here is the actual little pig nose that I'm doing, and I'm taking a Sharpie and going ahead and filling it in with Sharpie because I liked it better. And then I'm also taking a Sharpie and I'm going to go ahead and line the edges of the nose because it just gave it a little bit more dimension and made it easier to see what it was. And then I will be adding this to the center of the bow. But I am kind of just finalizing the design at this exact moment. So first I'm going to start by pulling the little pigtail that I made and making it longer. So I actually just ended up doing one long strand of yarn. I am taking a comb and trying to kind of separate it and fluff it out so it looks a little bit less like string and a little bit more like hair. The combing worked sometimes, but I also kept losing strings. So instead, I ended up like hand separating and uncurling each yarn piece. It was very time consuming, and I don't know how much of a difference it made. So here I'm just trimming it up a little bit, and then I'm going to place this directly behind the bow. Literally just like taking it and looping it behind the bow, but making sure that the hair pokes out onto the ears, and then making sure that it's pretty even. I can trim up any like little strands that are sticking out, but just making sure it's relatively even on both sides. So just adding a dot of hot glue, I'm going to push down the center of the yarn strings that I have, and then I'm taking these little scissors and trimming up any weird edges and doing the same thing on the other side. And then here I really started to detangle each of these little thread yarn things, and I still tried to use the comb, but overall the best method was just taking my hands and like unspinning them. After that, I did a little dot of hot glue on the back of the pig nose and glued that to the center of the bow. And that was the last step in making these ears, these Madam Mim talking ears. So this was the final product that I ended up with after adding the little pig nose and the pigtails, but I did want to show you guys what it looked like just before this with the sound box. Thank you guys so much for watching this video all the way through to the end. If you did make it to the end, then be sure to leave me a little pig emoji so that I know you were with me all the way through. And then after you finish this one, go ahead and head over to Shannon's channel and see what character she picked for her underrated, underloved, underrepresented character and what kind of crafts she chose to do. I will tell you guys, she is super talented. She's really good at crafting and she does things that I am not capable of, at least not right now. So I personally cannot wait to see her video and see what character she picked. Thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.